Welcome back to the Tavern Between Dimensions, the monthly tabletop RPG podcast. Stay tuned for some cool people talking cool things.
So, moving on to everything else within this book from page 16 onwards. So, our first stop is going to be feats. And sure, we discussed it last time and we've got it in writing here. So, feats have levels.
Yes. I have to say, like, there are so many changes to feat that honestly, I have not read through them all. So there's some that I may be very surprised by here.
Sure. I mean, looking at it from a more kind of macro lens, there's a lot of feats that are listed as 4th level. Now, one of the things I mentioned before was that I was wondering if it would move to a more 3rd edition style of feats, where you've got feats like every other level. And the feats would be smaller, but they're more numerous. As it stands, that's not the case. We're going to stick to the same schedule that we have now, which is like every 4th level, give or take. So yeah, a lot of these. So the starting ones, like actor, athlete, charger, they're all 4th level feats. So you can't take them at level 1 when everyone gets a free feat.
Yeah.
So you can't have someone with crossbow expert out the gate, whereas which is something you would see a lot of humans have, for example, but they're locked out from it too. With that in mind, looking ahead to find the 1st level feats, interestingly, we find things like fighting style, archery,
cool.
defense, dueling. So the fighters,
Specific,
the fighters and the paladins and the rangers didn't have fighting style. Yeah.
Does that also imply, going on they have to be at each level, that once you've passed that level, you can't have those feats? Or is it going to be minimum?
Minimum, yeah. So you have to be at least 1st level to take a 1st level feat. You have to be at least 4th level to take a 4th level feat.
Right, so you can, at each feat level, you can at least take... Yeah, sure, okay.
Because I know one of the things they did say with fighting styles is they've made them feats because they now expect you to dip in and out and pick new fighting styles. So if you're a fighter with defensive duelist, but then you sort of ending up really going to 2-weapon fighting, which doesn't really work for you, later down the line you can be like, right, I'm going to take the 2-weapon fighting style feat, so I can start using my 2-weapon fighting style. So this was a big change that I think has big implications for the fighter and for anyone who uses fighting styles.
I mean, given looking through it, my knee-jerk reaction is I'm not a massive fan of it. I got excited that everyone was going to get a feat at level 1 because I thought that you were going to get kind of the big league feats that were really kind of build defining. But no, you get to choose a fighting style. You get to choose lightly armored, which gives you light armor, medium armor, and a shield. So it's just like, that's not... I wouldn't get excited about my wizard taking lightly armored at 1st level as my 1st level feat. It's just a bit hum, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Obviously,
it's like the opposite to what they seem to be doing with Magic, isn't it? Magic, they seem to be opening up to everyone and being able to be a bit more adaptable, whereas this seems a lot more pigeonholing.
Yeah, it's just a weird one because it doesn't seem overly kind of evenly distributed. Because you would one 1st level feat that I thought might be good is weapon training, but you gain martial weapon proficiency. But it's like, if you wanted to play with a weapon that you might not normally get to use, having that from level 1 is, in a sense, character defining. But no, that's a 4th level. So it's like,
I don't know how Gacha would have played if I didn't have actor at level 1. It's at this point now, it's like that idea of being an actor doesn't quite pop off until later when...
Yeah. You
were just a rubbish actor before that.
It seems so, yeah. And until 4th level, where it's suddenly like, oh, this is where my Shakespeare has been.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know. There's a without kind of going into the feats one by one, the vast majority of them, like some of them got a bit more broad, some of them have got a bit more restricted. They're all much for muchness. There are some that I've noticed are truly kind of reined in. So the power attack feats, so great weapon fighting, sharpshooter. It used to be that both of those gave you could take a -5 to hit penalty in exchange for +10 damage, and a lot of builds would pick that as an auto include. That's not the case anymore. It still makes you much better at swinging a great weapon or swinging a bow around, but it's not as potent. One thing that again we'll reference a little bit later, crossbow expert mentions the light weapon property, and that's one of the big changes.
Fire a crossbow in each hand.
Yeah. We'll kind of look at the kind of the 2-weapon fighting a little bit later.
Yeah.
It does include the epic boons, which are the 20th level feats that you get in place of a capstone, because the capstone's gone to level 18. Some of these are cool. I don't think they'll see much use because they're at 20th level, and arguably not a lot of people play at 20th level, right? But
you might do a one-shot where you all level 20.
Right, exactly. I mean, but then you kind of go, oh, I've been playing this character for 38 years, and now I've taken the epic boon of combat prowess. When you miss with a melee attack, you can hit instead. You can do that once per fight.
Per fight. Nice. I'm going to run out of the room and end the fight, and then I'm going to run back in and start the fight.
He's already breaking it.
Wait!
Yeah.
Okay, that counts as the fight stopping. Okay, now we can continue.
I mean, epic boon of fortitude. A little bit further down that page, we're on page 18 here. Your hit point maximum increases by 40.
There's another way of looking at these epic boons as well. Like, yes, you get them at 20, but the term boon in itself is, I know there's been a campaign where the gods have blessed our characters and we've been given a boon. So these don't necessarily have to be level 20 amazing things. They can be very powerful rewards you give to your players. I think.
Sure. I mean, yeah, that's the sort of thing that it would be good as, like, if you, in lieu of say a magic item or something along those lines, but they're listed as 20th level feats, so you can't, as it is presented, take them.
True.
And the idea is supposed to be, if you carry on beyond level 20, then every level you get another boon.
Oh dear.
So it gets a bit weird. But I look at those and think, are they worth it?
Yeah, you almost want them to be awe-inspiring, don't you?
Like, 4th edition isn't the most popular system, but when you got to the start of the epic tier, so level 21, and bear in mind 4th edition was 1 to 30, not 1 to 20, one of the epic paths you could take was demigod. So yeah, it's a whole that guy became a demigod, and this guy got 40 extra hit points.
Yeah, I mean, if I remember correctly, there were some really great ones. I think for a group, I was planning on taking reincarnation. That if he ever died, he would wake up in X amount of days as a whole new species. He would still have all his memories and everything, but he'd just wake up as suddenly a dragonborn, or he would also have, because he's been reincarnated so many times, every single racial ability. So he could be a werebear that breathed fire.
Yes.
That was a boon. That was something that if you got to that level, you could start being really sort of a bit goofy with your characters. Like, oh, I remember the time I was an Aesir. I'm going to grow a pair of wings and fly away.
Yeah.
But you're right. These ones sound a bit like,
Yeah, it's what I find.
I mean, some of them are cool, like epic boon of skill proficiency. You gain proficiency as all skills. That is
sure. Yeah, I mean,
the speed increasing by 30. Like both of them, like that works all the time, and that's pretty good.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know. Like, looking through the feats as a whole, they're either 1st, 4th, or 20th level.
Yeah.
And pretty much all of the feats from the PHB are listed here as 4th level feats. So then you kind of go, well, what's an 8th level feat? Which one's at 8th level? Which one's a 12th level? What are fighters going to get? How's it going to work for fighters when they can take more feats than everyone else? I don't. Yeah, I can. They've obviously got an idea, but it's not fully released, so it's hard to picture what's what.
Do you think that with having specific level feats and most of them being 4th level, do you think that might change how you start campaigns sometimes? Because I know some campaigns start at level 1 and others start at level 3 and level 5. Do you think level 4 might become more of a staple?
Most likely.
Possibly. I mean, as is the whole implementation of leveled feats kind of means nothing, because you can't get these any earlier or later than when you're kind of getting them now, you know, within reason, because I know you can get feats at 1st level, but yeah, bit of a weird one. That's a bit, for me, it's a bit of a wet fish, because
Well, it makes me wonder with the fact that you're now having fighting styles as their own feat option.
yeah,
Whether or not they're going to start going down other routes. Like I know I keep parroting on about this in previous episodes, but I'm wondering if they are sort of like maybe taking again the branch out of Pathfinder's book, and you're going to suddenly have like monastic traditions where suddenly like monks have their own set of feats, rangers have their own set of feats, like bardic, and then you're starting to sort of like specialize into these different feat schools that only your class can. And I guess that also opens up the path of having sort of like advanced feats, like, oh, you've reached X level in actor, like you can now take the advanced feat where you become thespian.
Right. I mean, and this is what I was hoping for, but the fact that feats are still as rare as they are, and the ability score increase in itself is now a feat. So, like, we've not actually, nothing's changed, really? I don't know.
Very soft changes, isn't it? And perhaps that's what they're going for, really.
Yeah. I've had enough of feats. Let's move on. Right, pages 24 to scroll.
Yeah, this is when it gets
29.
wordy.
I'm gonna gloss over because that is just solid spell lists.
I think the only note that I wrote down, because they really made a thing of it, was to change the bark skin. The fact that you can now start casting it on other people as well, creating and it regenerates you as well, doesn't it?
Yes, yeah, it gives you 10 hit points. It's interesting that when we hit page 30, and we're looking at the rules glossary, so the idea of these playtests is that the previous playtests are still like canon unless something directly supersedes it. So they'll probably have the changes in the rules glossary. So we have reaffirming what ability checks are, what skills are, what actions are, etc., etc. Armor training is the same. The tools, in the grand scheme of things, are the same. If we stop off at attack on page 30, so something I've noticed is that you can equip or unequip one weapon as part of an attack action. So it means you can draw your sword and attack with it in one go. You don't have to do that weird weapon juggling thing that some builds have to do. Also means that without the use of tashers, throwing weapons are legitimate weapons.
Yes.
Because you can throw it, you can draw and throw a throwing dagger in one fell swoop, which I don't think anyone was running around holding their throwing daggers. you know.
What kind of a DM are you? They should have been.
So, going on to page 31, you're absolutely right. Bark skin has changed, so it now gives you 10 hit points, and you touch one willing creature. So it's not just an AC boost like it was.
The other big spell change.
Yes.
Guidance.
Oh, thank goodness! I was so glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, we'll
The
come.
worst spell in the game is now got a bit of a boost. Hurrah!
We will. I will come to
Well.
guidance in a minute.
Okay, you've got another one that you want to talk about first, do you?
Uh-huh.
All right, hit me with it.
Crits. Back. How they were. So everyone gets crits. Rather than just the fighters and the rangers and the barbarians and the rogues. Everyone gets crits. Cool. Hooray. So in the last playtest they had, if you roll a 20, you get inspiration. They've renamed that heroic inspiration, presumably to distance it from bardic inspiration. But it's on a 1.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. It's now going to suck to roll a 2.
Yeah.
But at least you know.
I have to say, on
you
getting
get a prize for turning up.
Getting it on rolling a 1 feels like a sarcastic head pat from your DM.
Yeah.
Like, you rolled a 1.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Bless you.
Have an inspiration.
Yeah. Page 32.
Hang on, before you move on to the next one, it doesn't say you can't use that inspiration to immediately re-roll your 1. Should it? Does everyone have the lucky feat? Surely it should. I mean, I'm guessing you can't just immediately re-roll it, but I imagine it needs to say that, right?
If you're watching Wizards of the Coast,
I hope it will. I actually think about it that the sentence after it, the DM determines whether a D20 test is warranted in any given such circumstance. I suppose that's to stop your party deliberately trying to faceplant with acrobatics rolls. But yes, rules as written. Everyone's got the lucky feat.
Yeah.
So, page 32. Exhaustion. So, I referenced this earlier. Exhaustion at the moment is 6 stages. Whereas, and no one really remembered what stages were unless you were playing like Rime of the Frost Maiden, Frost of the Rime Maiden, Maiden of the Frost Rime. But it was like,
Frosty
stage
the
1.
Snowman.
Stage 1 was skill checks. Stage 2 was attacks. Stage 3 was movement. Now it is 1 to 10. If you hit 10, you die. And the levels of exhaustion you have is a penalty to all of your D20 rolls.
Oh, okay.
When you make a D20 test, you subtract your exhaustion level from the D20 roll. You also reduce it off your spell save DCs.
Ooh.
So your wizard finds it harder to cast as they get more exhausted. Finishing a long rest removes 1 of your levels of exhaustion.
Short rest was that?
Long rest. So potentially it could take a week and a half to get back into fighting shape. Which then when you look at the ranger, so what we were mentioning earlier, they can remove levels of exhaustion per short rest.
Do you think I have to say this is like? Do you think this has been into reaction of how quick campaigns sort of like go from day to day? Like this seems to be a way of pushing characters into having more downtime.
Maybe.
Quite possibly. It's a weird one, isn't it? Because like arguably the traditional D&D adventures take place over extended periods of time, right? Like like the old timey kind of adventures, like you'll do a dungeon and then you'll go 3 months of drinking and gambling, and then you'll do another dungeon
because you're broke.
And then you'll go, I'm going to spend 3 years building a castle, and then you'll do another dungeon. Like, but then a lot of the adventure books, and I would argue a lot of adventures that DMs happen to run, are quite time sensitive. But yeah, this would, like, if I hit someone with 4 levels of exhaustion, that's a plot killer. Like that becomes a plot point, right? Also, but then on the flip side, it doesn't mean that Berserker Barbarian murders itself by the end of the adventuring day with levels of exhaustion from raging. It's also just easier to remember. It's just minus.
Much easier.
You've got 2 levels, minus 2. So yeah, that's interesting. Here we go. We got there. Guidance. Now, I found it interesting, Mr. Hyper G, that you said that the useless spell has become more useful.
Yes.
'Cause
I
I
suppose
actually
I've
think
now got to qualify that, haven't I?
Yeah.
because I think it's the other way around.
Regret much?
Mm-hmm.
No.
It's fundamentally the spell that you can just button mash your player on the head, like, I'm gonna give you guidance, I'm gonna give you guidance, I'm gonna give you, there was
Yeah.
no stakes to guidance. Now it's like you
Yeah.
have to choose that moment, and once you've
Sure.
chosen that moment, you're locked in, and that's it for the day. So you can't button mash your friends.
Yeah, I'll be honest. In Wild Beyond the Witchlight, like Sprock, my artificer has guidance. I took guidance because no one else had it. Like the only person that gets guidance is Sprock, because everyone else just runs off and does a skill check without first getting a tutorial from the goblin. I'll be fair. I like how it's laid out here as a reaction to. Interesting. Here it is again. In response to blah blah blah, failing an ability check. So you have to know that it's failed first, which is an interesting one. So I like that it's a reaction. What I don't like is that someone can only benefit from it once per long rest. Oh, that's a deal breaker for me. Imagine if it was like you can only hit a monster with firebolt once per day.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the changes. Like, I can understand why they've done it, because even in the video he described it as like, it got to the point that if someone took guidance, why would they not use guidance? If anyone was doing a skill check, why wasn't the person with guidance with their hand on the back? It's I think removing it, maybe even proficiency per day may be better. I'd agree that once per day is a harsh thing to do. Maybe proficiency times per day per person.
Yeah. Also, it hasn't escaped my notice that you've managed to wiggle your way out of your justification.
Yeah. No, I've got a reason for that, but you're not going to like it at all.
No, go for it.
It's okay. Anton usually annoys people. Like, you're the surrogate Anton, so you can annoy the patrons today.
No, I've tried to keep quiet because the reason that I said what I said is purely my own mistake, and I forgot that guidance wasn't actually true sight. So I was actually referring to all my comments meaning true sight. So make of that what you will. I got the wrong spell. Guidance is fine.
I mean, to be fair, True Strike is still hot garbage.
Yeah, so it is, and that hasn't been changed, has it? So
I think the reaction thing is big though, because that's really how people play it now, right?
Yeah,
they don't play it proactively. You do a thing, you go, oh, guidance, but like as they're rolling, and so I think
it's up to your DM to stop them.
Yeah, and you always feel like I guess you're like, oh, okay, yeah, but like this way, that's part of it, and I think that's probably them realizing how guidance is actually and remembering spells, and so I think that's a really big but a good change.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, you're absolutely right. It was a case of like whenever there's a clutch roll, that person will excitedly roll their d20, and you'll hear guidance, bardic inspiration. I'm going to do the help action.
Exactly right.
Yeah. Which brings us on to the help action.
Yeah.
You can now only help if you yourself have proficiency in that skill.
Yeah,
I like that. I like that a lot.
It's weird that kind of wasn't a thing.
So many times I have like begrudgingly agreed to do the advantage roll when, I don't know, a wizard tries to give advantage to the fighter for moving a boulder or something.
I'll have you hold that door open.
Exactly, yeah.
My noodlums.
So many times I'm making the wizard roll the actual check and doing it that way. And that's me being spiteful rather than me going with rules. So, this makes it feel better.
Yeah, I mean, the homebrew rule that we've got for elsewhere is that anyone who does a help action has to make a DC like 10 check or something along those lines. If they pass, then that player gets advantage. If they fail, that player gets disadvantage because you get into a too many cooks situation.
Yeah. No, I think it is funny, and that wizard thing's a definite example, considering in our game we have a one-handed wizard that's about 80, helping the 20-year-old fighter. Picks him up is hilarious.
It's just a portcullis. Lift with your knees. Yeah, exactly. So helps been tweaked a little bit. We've already discussed that heroic inspiration is on a 1. That's cool. Hidden. The hidden is a thing.
Yes.
Stealth has rules.
It's a condition.
Yes. You become hidden, and there are actual definitions for what that means, because the stealth rules in the PHB are kind of wishy-washy, and everyone just had to use a weird, twisted sense of common logic. But yeah, you can be hidden, and you become hidden with the hide action. And here's the bit that I don't overly like about the hide condition. The hide action is that to become hidden, you have to pass a DC 15 dexterity check.
Yeah, that's a bit harsh.
Like, if you've got a rogue at level 1, 2, or 3 with a +5 in stealth, which will probably be a bit more because of expertise, but you see where I'm going with this. The rogue is only becoming hidden 50% of the time.
If you look at it the other way, though, it does also stop you when you roll a stealth check, like getting an 18. It stops your opponent getting you on a 19. So someone that's not necessarily proficient and not just eagle-eyed, they can still, on a natural roll of 20, see you wherever you are. So it makes you, in a weird way, that small from 15 onwards makes it a lot harder for an opponent to see you. Yeah. Well, impossible, right? Because once you get 15, you are hidden. So I think it's made it harder, but also like when a lot of the rogues, I'm sure, and I know I've done this, gone, right, we're in this open room, I hide. So it makes it harder for that to actually happen. Yeah. And I guess what they might do is add for open terrain and obscure terrain, make it easier and harder for that DC check, right?
Modifiers depending on location.
Yeah, I was going to say,
that would be cool.
It specifies that it's a DC 15 check when you're heavily obscured behind 3/4 cover or total cover, and you must be out of line of sight. But you're absolutely right, there's going to be certain things that affect that. But in a way, is it not kind of weird if someone's got like super high perception? Because like if someone becomes hidden, the DC check to find them is whatever they roll. So given that there's already that kind of variable DC, but then they implemented this DC 15 cutoff, why not? Like, you can hide badly.
Well, we've also already mentioned the search action. Until we know fully about the search action, maybe that will have a condition that if you roll DC 15, you spot hidden foes. So maybe the search might have that built-in mechanic to be you remove the hidden aspect if you hit this DC.
Although we know that to find a hidden foe, the DC is whatever they rolled, as long as it was above 15.
You know, maybe down the line that might be what it is. It's just as I know that's what it is, but what it could be, because that would, if those two things married, in that sort of way, I think that would be a good way of doing it, having that, action to counter the action rather than dice v dice, which always gets messy.
Yeah, that's fair. Bottom of page 33 and pretty much all of page 34. Influence as an action. So I think this is icky. So it's basically, how do you influence people in a social situation? Influence another creature to do something you request or demand. So this is the stomping grounds of the persuasions, the intimidations, the deceptions.
I like it says this action can only be used on creatures controlled by the DM. I think that's
right. I mean, that sentence followed up by and it isn't mind control. Like the fact that that's a specification out the gate makes me go,
like it's hilarious.
It's hilarious.
I think the way you could look at that in a real world situation is, do you mind going to the bar and get me a beer? Yeah, right. That's influencing someone. It's not like, can you go and kill that person for me?
Yeah.
Not really.
Everyone's not a Jedi.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is what it's saying.
Yeah, it's
You might have put it down on that form a little while ago, but you're not a Jedi.
it's just the bit that I find a bit odd is that, I mean, it has the idea of like indifferent, friendly, and hostile NPCs, which, to be fair, is actually kind of in the PHP. And I'm going to put my neck out and say no one remembers to use. But to actually do it, they then have like set DCs. So if someone is indifferent to you on a DC 10, the creature does as asked, as long as no risks or sacrifices are involved. Whereas DC 20, the creature accepts a minor risk or sacrifice to do as asked. And like, it's a bit, you get more if they're friendly, you get less if they're hostile. But here's the thing, right? I have just thrown a flagon of ale over a tavern patron, making them hostile to me.
Hopefully not one of our patrons then.
Yeah, hopefully not. A beholder that's trying to disintegrate me with its eye beams has the same DCs for me to go, please don't kill me, as the soggy halfling. Because there are set DCs. See? Like,
unless monsters have immune to
influence.
Yeah, right. Which,
But, I mean,
fundamentally, it would also be like, there is a lot of common sense here, because you could
Sure.
probably get to, again, using the bar analogy, you could probably tell the soggy halfling to get you a beer. If you turn around to the beholder and says, can you get me a beer? He's firing that disintegration ray at you.
Well, theoretically,
but
if
instead
you
of
roll
a disintegration, it's a beer.
I mean, theoretically,
Minor
though,
illusion.
Like, rules is written. If you ask the beholder to get you a beer on a DC 20, the creature does as asked, as long as no risks or sacrifices are involved.
Sacrifice their money.
Yeah, right. That's immediately. Sorry, mate. You're out.
I imagine
too
there'll
subjective
be.
to me.
Yeah, I imagine there'll be some common sense checks for this one in future playtests.
I just find it. I find the static DCs a bit weird. Same for hidden. Like, I don't understand why there's this kind of seemingly meaningless floor, I guess, like ceiling, whatever way you want to look at it. I don't know. Last but not least, 2-weapon fighting, page 35. 2-weapon fighting has been the red-headed stepchild of the D&D 5th edition rules since 2014. That's my hot take. It's something that everyone secretly wants to do, but as soon as you learn the rules of how it actually gets implemented, no one wants to do. So there was a ray of light when the light weapon property came out, because 2-weapon fighting is now rolled into light weapons, which is if you attack with a light weapon and you have another light weapon, you can also attack with it. So you don't have to use a bonus action to do 2 attacks. Fantastic. Cool. So now we can be a bit more reasonable with our bonus actions. But then I asked the question of, do you get to do that on every attack for things like fighters or paladins or barbarians with multiple attacks? Because when you look at the maths, great weapon fighting just gets better than 2-weapon fighting very quickly as soon as like multiple attacks are factored in. And I'm devastated to say that no, you only get to make 1 additional attack with a light weapon, which is sad. It would have been fun to be like, I'm a 5th level ranger with 4 attacks. But
now you've got 5.
Yeah.
What are you whinging about?
Yeah, come on.
It's just, it's a bit sad because like,
I'm right-handed.
The way to break it down, like at 5th level, a fighter with a greatsword is doing 4d6 of damage if they hit twice. A 2-weapon fighter is doing 3d6. Like, and then it just drops off more and more as you go on. It's a shame. There's a part of me that thinks if great weapon fighters and great maul fighters and whatnot are swinging around that many d6s, why not just let the 2-weapon fighters match it? Like it's a different aesthetic.
Could that be a
It fe-
feat that they add? Do you think?
Maybe. I mean, that's certainly, well, possibly that would be a good feat. There's a part of me that thinks knee-jerk reaction. I would just say, you know what? If you have multiple attacks on your turn and you're a 2-weapon fighter, I'll let you make 2 attacks. Because like, it's not going to be any more offensive than Billy Greatsword over there, you know. But yeah, there we are. That brings us to the end of the document because nothing else in here over the last 2 pages are of note.
I think
But
we're going to
thoughts?
have to get used to the idea, Dan, that probably for the next few months we're going to do nothing but D&D ONE segments.
Yeah,
Because
sure.
every time one of these episodes are going to launch, they're going to do a new playtest, and we're going to be like, well, that changed and that was different, and
Yeah.
you know, I don't think we're going to be talking about much else.
Yeah, I mean, Tom and Steph, is there anything in there that kind of raised your eyebrows more than other bits, or?
One silly thing that I noticed right at the start in the expert classes is there's no more random roll for your starting gold. They're all set amounts. Woohoo! But that's the silliest little thing to notice ever. But hey, I noticed it. So
Yes, you're almost encouraged to just free choose.
yeah,
Your
which is
equipment.
great.
Like
I like it.
yeah.
Everyone
Yeah.
did that anyway. So
Yeah.
great.
Tom, was there anything that stood out?
No, I think for me the main thing is the jump to reaction and the use of that more so than anything. Be interesting how that goes for other, because there's a lot of things that are saying reaction instead of what they were before, and whether that continues with other classes as well. I think that'll be really something to really, because some classes already use their reaction or can loads. So whether
Others
or
never
not
use them at all.
exactly. So whether they're trying to balance that out amongst classes and give them
Yeah.
more options, I'm not sure. I'm interested to see though.
I mean, reactions are a very good way of getting players to be engaged off of their turns as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah,
Like,
totally.
when do I jump in? What do I jump in with? Yeah.
And I know there's been a big drive to sort of like free up the bonus action economy. So you know, reactions may be a good way of changing that instead.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, we'll just have to see what happens, and then next month we'll see how it all changed again.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
Thank you very much for watching. If you like, hate, or dislike what we're doing, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And check out our other videos on the Explosive Elsewhere YouTube channel.